Okay, where we left off on our first video was talking about strings, so I went ahead and started a new empty web page where we can talk about strings a little bit. And I guess the first thing, let me go ahead and create a form, and we'll start working with some strings. Learned from my mistake last time. Let's put the script at the bottom.
You gotta put that text.javascript every time you put script.
It'll still work even if you don't, but it's it helps for the script interpreter to recognize it as that. So we kind of left off talking about functions, and I just started writing script here. I didn't even start right with the function. We'll just call it get name.
Would that work if
so part of the reason I'm doing this is, let's see, input type of button. So the first thing, and when we're talking about strings, you know, is what is a string? Well, a string is any combination of letters and numbers. Okay, so or special characters or quotation marks or any character at the keyboard. And so the first thing I did is I created a variable equal to a value that's in a text box. Since a user can type whatever they want in a text box, it's going to be returned in a string. Okay, so then all I did was I did an alert dialog box of that name, simply alerting the string. And so, you might not recognize that what this actually is holding as a string. It might be a little bit more apparent if I just did something like, Bob, and then I alert Bob every single time I click on the button. But then it's not dynamic, right? Every single time I click me, it's going to say Bob. It's not getting the value out of the text box. Okay, so the first thing I did was, if I undo that, get the value out of the text box, not in quotes. There we go. Now, this variable holds a string inside of whatever that text box is. Now, there's another type of string that says, hello, your name is. And so now this variable holds a string literal. So a string literal is just the name of a string that every single time you run the program, it's going to say the same thing right here. Or when I had Bob in quotes, that was a string literal. Okay, versus a value that's in the text box that returns a string that's dynamic in nature. Whole purpose kind of summarizing what I'm trying to get my point across. There are string literals that are in quotes and will display the same values each time the program is run. Okay, so there are literal values and then there are variable values. Variables, they change. Okay, so what I have here is I have a literal, and then I also, in this case, I have a literal, and then I have this plus symbol, which is called string concatenation. When you add strings together, they give it a fancy term. They call it concatenation. So we have a literal value concatenated with a variable value that comes from the text box. Okay, guys, what's up?
How would you do that if you wanted to put it in an alert and just keep the name as what you type in?
So here's another example of some strings. Now, in the case of this, the document.write, these are string literals. Document.write, that's a string literal. Document.write, that's a string literal. How do I know it's a string literal? Well, every single time you run the program, it's going to print out that value. It doesn't change. It's not dynamic in nature. We do have a couple variables here, but I mean, if you wrote this script exactly as is, those quotes are string literals. They're not getting any sort of dynamic data from the page. We got the concatenator here, the plus symbol. Now, this is kind of interesting, the plus equals. This is the first time you're seeing this operator. And so I'll demonstrate the plus equals. Okay, so I've created two variables here. First name is Bob, and then the full name is the first name added to the last. Anyone know who Bob Gibson is? Cardinals pitcher, right? Okay. So if I do an alert on the full name, what do you think is going to come up? Yep. It's going to be Bob Gibson, right? With a space in between. Did I?
Oh, you need to change the on click from get name to full name, right?
Well, it's still called get name. I missed my quotes. Good eyes. Okay. See how that works? Okay. Now, this is the same thing. This functionally does the same thing. It's just the shorthand, meaning it takes less code.
What does the value on click do again?
Full name plus equals. I'm going to append the first name. Here we go. And I realize this sense probably makes more sense if we just call it name. If we take the variable name and assign it to Bob, and then you reassign the name equal to Gibson. So let me name equals name plus that should have been my example in the first place, and I'm sorry for the choppiness here. We're assigning the new value of name equal to the current value of name plus Gibson. So this is the same thing as this example right here that I've just highlighted. Let me
I think that's probably got the comment thing on the bar part.
Yeah, I'm changing the alert to just say name.
But you also did semicolon after fix it.
That semicolon is optional, but good practice. There we go. Okay, so let me just summarize one more time, kind of the shorthand here. Var name equals Bob. Name plus equals. We're just appending a last name onto our current variable. Okay. Now the same thing could be done with a little bit of math here, right? So let me. So what I want to do is instead of using strings to concatenate, let's do math, right? So what is the alert going to pop up? 8. Because x is 3. The new value of x is equal to 3 plus 5. So we do an alert, which is x, which will pop up 8. Okay. Now let's do the same thing. We're just doing a shorthand. So what would be the shorthand version of that? X plus equals 5. It's the same thing. It looks funky. It's definitely strange the first time you see it.
Means add 5.
It means add 5 to itself.
Okay.
I don't think he saved it.
Let me make sure I saved it, but again,
It's gonna be the same thing.
it's going to be the same thing. Okay, so that's the plus equals. It can work with strings. It can work with numbers, and you can do math on it. I just wanted to demonstrate the plus equals. You can kind of see here, var destination equals Honolulu. Destination plus equals is in Hawaii. So then destination would say Honolulu is in Hawaii. You can add an escape character to your strings, which will cause one of these actions to occur. Really, probably the most popular one is a new line, which will cause your output to go on a new line. So let me demonstrate that real quick. So this button calls get name. So you can see a backslash n is going to cause the second name to go on a new line.
Yeah, there's not.
Got to do an alert. I'm just moving too fast, guys. I apologize. I don't know why I feel rushed today. Should slow down.
Maybe.
There you go. Well, I know it's a lot of slides, so I'm trying to go faster the slides. That way we're not spending here for 4 hours because I want to get you guys into labs. But you got to understand the work before you get into the lab. So it's kind of
Because I did not know what that plus equals means. Well, I understood it, but I didn't know.
Makes more sense now.
Yeah.
Good. Yes, sir.
I noticed like whenever you did a new line to add a space before we got into step, if you put that right next to the end, would it mess it up?
No,
So that could go to Mr.
I do not believe so.
Makes it look better.
Okay, to be honest with you, some of these, okay, backslash is a common one. So if you want to get a backslash in your output, you need to type in backslash backslash because one backslash is the escape sequence. So backslash backslash equals a single backslash. A lot of these, like a carriage return. I mean, these are things like in the old days of a typewriter. A carriage return is when, the carriage goes all the way to one way and you shift it all the way back to the beginning.
They use JavaScript on typewriters?
No, but that's
No.
but just the common ones are a backslash and a new line. Oh, a single quotation mark, backslash single quote.
Go on YouTube. I'm gonna make a meme of it.
Are you gonna do the subtraction?
Yeah, so let me do a few more examples of these assignment operators. Because in here we could do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Modulus is something new. Let me show you modulus. If you have 5 divided by 2, what's the result? What's the result of 5 divided by 2? 2 with a remainder of 1, right? So 5 modulus 2, modulus simply means the remainder. So what's the remainder of 5 divided by 2? The remainder is 1. So 5 modulus 2 is
2.
So the 5 modulus 2 is equal to 1. That's just the remainder. Okay? So let's do 11 modulus 3. What's the remainder of 11 divided by 3? The remainder is 2. So 11 modulus 3 is 2.
So modulus just means get to.
Modulus means get the remainder.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never done math like that. To be like 5 divided by 2 is 2.5.
Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Well, before you did
The decimal.
the decimal place, you did remainders, right?
Nah, that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. But you have to think back to that point. Okay, so how many times does 3 go into 11?
3,
Okay, so that's 9. How many are left over?
2.
2. That's your remainder. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's do 15 modulus.
4.
Modulus is the sign, because I don't see the word modulus.
Modulus is the percent sign.
Plus 1, 2, and 6.
Okay, so the remainder here is
6.
6.
Look, you true coded math.
If you just say remainder, it might help. Okay, if you were born on an even or odd year, you could take any number, modulus 2. If you got a remainder, then you know you were born on an odd year. If you didn't, you were born on an even year.
Okay, do that.
Using the algorithms is probably play some part.
So it gets into, it can be used when, like Nathan was saying, if you have some sort of algorithm that needs to determine if you were born on an even or an odd year, and then if you're born on an even year, you have some output. If you're born on an odd year, you have another piece of output. Okay, but that's just one example, and there might be a situation where you need to know how many are left over on something. So that's where you would use modulus in that scenario. Okay. The increment and decrement operators. This just increments x by 1, right? So you could put it before or after the x, like so. And the output actually does make a difference. So what do you think the output's going to be? So we're incrementing x by 1.
Oh, 6.
So we get 6.
So then if you do the.
Okay, let's see what happens if we do it the other way around. Now, I'm going to do this.
So then we're gonna be 4.
I'm just going to add another, I'm going to add a second alert here.
So it's gonna be 6 and 5.
No, it still changes it, watch.
So plus.
Just this is the first time you're seeing this, so just observe. And so they're both 6, right? X has been incremented to 6. And it still displays 6. Okay, now here's how the other way works. The other way, it does the alert with X before it does the increment. So the first alert's actually going to print out 5, then it does the increment, and then on this line, it'll print out 6. See here, it does the alert. Now it increments x to 6, and then it prints out 6.
So. Oh.
So this is called a postfix increment, meaning it runs the statement and then it increments x. Then it increments x.
Always by 1?
Always by 1.
The
Okay.
plus equals doesn't do that? The plus equals just adds 2 strings?
Plus equals can add 10 if you wanted to, not just 1. Plus plus is always going to add 1.
Okay.
Can you do 4 pluses?
No. No. Okay, then we got a decrement operator, which does the same thing. It subtracts by 1, prefix and postfix. Then the negative operator makes a value negative. The assignment operator, we've been working with that already. That's the assignment operator right there. Compound addition assignment, we did that. Compound subtraction assignment, okay, let's do that. X minus equals 2. What's going to be the value of x? 3.
Oh,
There you go. So once you get the first one, it's easy to figure out the other ones. What if we say x times equals 2? What's going to be the output?
10.
10.
oh, I get it.
Okay.
Oh, I was.
If I divide, that'll give us our 2.5. 5 equals, or the new value of x equals 5 divided by 2.
What if you wanted that to just give a whole number?
Then you're going to have to figure out how to round.
So would it be like parsecs?
Yeah. Okay, these comparison operators, we're going to get into using these in the next chapter when we start talking about ifs and else ifs.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Okay, but we're not working with these so much right now. Same thing with our logical operators. And a lot of these special operators, again, we're just going to have to use them before. There's no point in trying to memorize these right now. The next slide here, binary operators versus unary operators. Binary in our number system means how many options?
1 and 0.
2. 1 and 0, right? So our operators, we just got done going over a whole bunch of slides on operators, right? These are our operators. So our binary operators are something like the addition, right? The addition symbol is a binary operator because it has an operand on the left and the right. So that's a binary operator. One more time? Yeah. So the terms here, binary operator. Binary means there's two options, like a 0 and a 1. So it really just means these are our operators. Okay, this is a whole table of operators, and the binary operators are the ones that have something on the left and the right of them. So there's two values that they're working with. Like the addition operator has something on the left and on the right. Okay? Whereas a unary operator, unary standing for just one, means it just has one piece of data that it's working with. Something like the plus plus. When we said x plus plus, it's just working with x. That's a unary operator.
So, talking about the value instead of that,
Yeah, I'm talking about,
the value of the operator.
so the operator is plus. What comes on either side, let's say var num equals 4 plus 6. These are called operands. Okay, so operator, operand. Okay, so the plus is a binary operator because it has two operands. That's all it is. It's just terminology here. Okay, whereas I could say the plus plus operator is a unary operator because it only has one operand. It's only working with one piece of data. It's unary versus binary.
So what does binary look like?
5 plus 2.
The binary was like the plus. 5 plus 2, yes. There's also a ternary operator, which you might guess ternary is 3, okay? And that's something that is in this chapter at the end. Okay, so we already talked about arithmetic operators. These are all the same except for now we have modulus, but when I say modulus, you need to think of remainder. It is a percent symbol, but it represents the remainder. Okay, and there's just more demonstrations of the arithmetic operators. Is the division symbol a binary, unary, or ternary operator? Binary. That's correct. This slide says one more time that the assignment statement can have a combination of variables and literal values on the right-hand side. So we've done that already. This is a literal. This is a variable. So on the right-hand side of this assignment operator, we've got variable and a literal, which is what that bullet says right there. You cannot include a literal value as the left operand. Which I believe is talking on the left-hand side of the equal sign. The one caveat that we already covered in the last video, I'm going to cover it again here. The JavaScript interpreter will attempt to convert strings into numbers. However, it does not convert strings to numbers when doing addition. So you guys remember when I tried to add 10 plus 1 and it was giving me 101? It was doing concatenation. And how did I fix that? Parsing. So that was in the last video if you need to go back and review that. We talked about prefix and postfix. Here's the thing. These concepts, and I've said this to you guys before, the first time learning a language, these concepts are hard, okay? It's going to be hard the first time, but guess what? You get through JavaScript and then you learn them again in your next semester. Really, it's the same concepts over. And then in your fourth and your last semester, you're going to see the concepts all over again. Okay? So remember, like I said, the first time you learned math and you learned what the plus symbol was, and you're like, oh my gosh, how does this work? Right? In first grade. But then by the time you reach second grade and you were doing math, it was a little bit easier the second time around. Then by the time you're in third grade, it wasn't so bad. Okay? That's what this is. So I'm getting a lot, I'm reading your body language, I hear you guys, what you're saying, this is hard, I don't get it, but that's normal. That's normal, okay? And so this prefix and postfix operators, when you study JavaScript, they're going to be there. When you study Java, they're going to be there. When you study Ruby, they're going to be there. They act the same way in all these different languages, just maybe some syntax differences, but they're going to be there. Okay? So I hope that's a little encouraging that if you're struggling through this, just buckle down, do your best, and really give it your best though. Okay, now this slide goes through and it shows you again the difference between prefix and postfix, which I did in a demonstration. All of our compound assignment operators, I did demonstrations of those. Here's more demonstrations of them. Here's all of our comparison and conditional operators again. This is normally used in an if statement. Like if the person's age is over 21, then you can let them in to the venue. Okay, so when we start talking about if and if else's and things like that, we'll be using these operators. There is one conditional operator that they cover in this chapter called they call it the conditional operator. I said we're going to talk about the ternary operator. And so I want to do a demonstration of that.
Yeah, because
So what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate this, not this slide, I jumped ahead, the conditional operator. And so this is very similar to an if-else statement. And I can demonstrate this by saying, please enter your age. And then the text box is text age. And then I'm just going to call the function get. Just something to execute. Var age equals document dot get element by ID. Text age dot value. Now here comes the conditional operator. Okay, and so it starts with a conditional expression followed by a question mark. If it's true, expression 1 will run, but if it's false, expression 2 will run. So only one of these expressions is going to run, 1 or 2, based on this being true or false. So the question is the age greater than 21 question mark. So this is our conditional expression. If it's true, we alert welcome to the venue. Otherwise, please leave.
You didn't do an if statement though, so what did you do again?
No, so this is a shorthand if-else statement.
Should you do greater than or equal to? Because if you say 21, well, no, that's
We could do greater than or equal to.
well, that's work.
What if you wanted to do,
Hold on, let's just see if this works first. So I've been known to rush through this and make a mistake. Welcome to the venue. However, if we do 12, please leave.
what if
If
you
we
wanted
do
to
21,
It's like a kid's
redirect to Google or something like that, if they're under 21?
redirect to Google. Yeah. So you could do something like a redirect if they're under 21. Instead of just doing alert, you could do a redirect of the web page. Okay. Now you might say, how do we do redirects? I think that's in the next. I think it's in chapter 4 is where we get into redirects. Okay. But for now, we'll keep it simple. So again, we have the condition followed by the question mark. Is this true or false? If it's true, you run the first expression. I could put a little semicolon here. If it's false, what comes after the colon will execute. So only this will run. If it's true, this will run if it's false. And they had a very similar example here where they had the result of 1. If it's true, the result is equal to this if it's false. These are some different values that can be considered as false. They call them falsy, but essentially they evaluate to false. Like empty quotes is 0, negative number, or negative 0, not a number, all those could be considered false. We will use these logical operators in the next chapter. Again, these special operators, we'll use these throughout the book. No need to jump into this portion of the book right now.
What if you wanted it to be like, to bring it, to do something?
Okay, when we're talking about operator precedence, in your math class, you know, and I didn't learn this way, but isn't there like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally?
Yeah, Candace.
Yeah. Where you go left to right, you know, so if we have a division and multiplication, we divide 30 divided by 5 first, and we get 6. 6 multiplied by 2 is 12, and that would be our results. In this situation, though, when we have the plus plus operator, we increment x first, so it actually starts right to left because that plus plus operator needs to happen first. So you increment x first, and if we look at this scenario, x is 3, y is 2. The new value of x is equal to y times equals plus plus x. So x would get incremented to 4, y equals y times x, which would be y equals y times 4. 2. The new value of y equals 2 times 4, which would be 8. So then x would equal 8. I believe would be the output there. But when you have the plus plus operator, it changes the order. And that brings us to the end of the PowerPoint.